First of all, I would like to welcome Dr. Nina Seth. She is a principal at Govind Public College since 2010. She is a vice president of All India Association of College Principal. She is a NAC assessor. She is a vice president of Punjab University Principal Association. She is a president of Punjab University Sport Council, member of Academic Council, various UG and PG Board of Studies, member of various international professional bodies and research journal, actively engaged with several NGOs working for women empowerment and financial weak students. Dr. Pejni is awarded Silver Jubilee Fellowship by Haryana government, Kurukshetra University Research Fellowship. She was awarded Junior Research Fellowship and Senior Research Fellowship from UGC New Delhi. She has delivered a lot of invited talks in various universities in India and abroad. She has presented around 57 national and international conferences and seminars. She is also awarded from state level awarded with Best Teacher Award and various other awarded has honored by a private and public bodies. She was awarded Sir D.C. Copper Young Scientist Award for the best paper at Label in 1998. She is awarded with Bharat Shiksha Ratan Award at New Delhi. Today, Dr. Nina is with us and she is going to explain about the criteria second of the NAC assessor. And as earlier, I have listened to Dr. Nina and Dr. Nina, I was very impressed by your presentation and it's our welcome to you that and thanks to you that you have accepted my invitation and you have given us your precious time. I would like to invite Dr. Nina Penji.
Thank you for the nice introduction. And I'm thankful to Dr. R.K. Gupta ji, Chairman of the Technia Group and Director Professor Dr. Rathod and Dean Dr. Rashmi Gujarati for giving me opportunity to speak on the criteria 2 of revised accreditation framework of National Assessment and Accreditation Council. And just for a revision, for the last 3 days, you might be going through all these criteria, and Dr. Pon Mudiraj might have detailed about the 7 criteria. These are there, and 1000 weightage is given in the SSR for all the criteria. And today we are going to take teaching, learning, and evaluation. And if you see that at university level, 200 marks are given to it, and at affiliated for autonomous college 300 weightage is given to that, and for affiliated undergraduate colleges and for affiliated postgraduate colleges 350 weightage is given out of the total 1000 weightage given in the SSR. It means this criteria is the most important, most significant one for assessment and accreditation for NAC purpose, and you can easily get these 350 marks, and we will proceed further that how we can. So this slide shows the distribution of matrix and key indicator across the criteria. Up to now, you might know what are the qualitative matrix and what are the quantitative matrix and the key indicator. And as we all know that they're taking cognizance of diversity in kind of institutions, higher education have been grouped under 3 categories, namely the university, autonomous college, and affiliated and constituent college. So the assessment process will be carried out in 3 stages. As you might have learned earlier that the main stage is self-study report, and after the student satisfaction survey and the peer team report. The SSR or the self-study report has a total of this 115 matrix for universities, and it has 107 matrix for autonomous colleges, and for undergraduate affiliated and constituent colleges these are 93, and for PG colleges these are 96, covering all the 7 criteria mentioned earlier. So we see there are 2 types of metrics are there, like one, those requiring the quantifiable facts and figures as data, which have been indicated as the quantitative matrix. And those metrics requiring the descriptive responses, mainly in 500 ones, they ask you to explain, and accordingly, these are named as the qualitative matrix. And the quantitative matrix add up to approximately 70%, and qualitative matrix add up to approximately up to 30%. Here you can see for PG colleges, this is 36, 60, 35, 58. These are across all the 7 criteria. So, as you have seen that weightage has been given, and if we see the distribution weightage for across all the 7 criteria for quantitative and qualitative metrics separately, then as we are taking today criteria number 2, we can see for undergraduate, there are 225 questions are asked under quantitative criteria for undergraduate. Same is for postgraduate, and qualitative question descriptive type are 125 both for undergraduate and postgraduate. So same type of questions are asked both for undergraduate and postgraduate as far as criteria number 2 is concerned. Here we can see that this percentage of 33.8% is out of total 665. It means quantitative criteria of classes for undergraduate courses accounts to total weightage of 665 out of 1000. That comes out to 33.8, and same is for that. If we add up qualitative and quantitative criteria, suppose for undergraduate, here it is 335, here it is 665. This is quantitative and this is qualitative. It adds to 1000. Here again, I want to mention one thing, that some of the metrics are applicable, non-applicable, and can be opted out. But in criteria 1, 2, and 7, all metrics are essential. The data submitted on the quantitative matrix will be subjected to the validation exercise with the help of the DVV. DVV is the data validation and the verification process. While the response to the qualitative matrix, all these matrix, qualitative matrix will be reviewed peer team on site visit. So these are the key indicators. You might be have question, what are the key indicators? These are the criteria 2, and in criteria 2, there are 7 key indicators. This criteria 2 pertains to the efforts of an institution to serve the students of different backgrounds and abilities through effective teaching learning experiences. NAAC expect institutions to have the interactive instructional technique that engage the students in higher order of thinking and investigation. Faculty should be adequate in number, competent, there should be continuous professional development. So this criteria 2 is captured in 7 key indicators based on their expectations, like student enrollment and profile, catering to student diversity, teaching learning process, teacher profile and quality, evaluation process and reforms, student performance and learning outcomes, and student satisfaction survey. If we see how much weightage is given to each and every key indicators, this table will justify. You can see for university, student enrollment and profile, marks are given. For autonomous college, 20 weightage is given. For affiliated colleges, both for undergraduate and postgraduate, 40 marks were given. Under revised framework, these marks has been distributed. Early, the same number of marks were given for all type of institution, and after they get the feedback from various stakeholders that it should not be same, because the university and autonomous college has full autonomy to deal with all these issues. So accordingly, the number has been redistributed. So here for undergraduate, postgraduate, 40 marks. Catering to student diversity has 20 marks for university, 30 marks for autonomous college, and for affiliated undergraduate or postgraduate, 50 marks are there. For teaching learning process, 20 marks for university, 50 for autonomous, and 50 marks for affiliated and constituent colleges are there. For teacher profile and quality, 50-50, and here 60 marks are there for the affiliated and constituent colleges. For evaluation process and reforms, 40 marks for university, 50 for autonomous, and for affiliated UG, PG colleges, 30 marks are given. So here you can see that criteria 2.6 and 2.7, student performance and learning outcome and student satisfaction survey. For if we talk about the affiliated colleges, both undergraduate and postgraduate, there is a good scope with 60 marks each out of 350. These are in hands of teachers. Teachers can do wonder here. Should focus mainly on this. So teacher has to play very significant role to achieve maximum weightage out of this. If we talk about catering to student diversity and teaching learning process, 50-50 marks are given. So it again, it is in your hands, teachers, to make the teaching student centric, what they are expecting. For 2.4 teacher profile and quality, these have the 60 marks here, but it is not in the hand of the teachers. And here we can understand that most of the higher education institutes are struggling with the recruitment. In government institutions, you are dependent on government policy and sanction, while it is in hand of management at the private institute, so they can get full marks if they have all the regular teacher out there. For university, the key indicator 2.4 and 2.5 carry 50 and 40 marks. These are important one, as the university also has autonomous status and can better redress all the issue of recruitment and quality of teacher, and can easily make evaluation reform also. So same is with the autonomous colleges, which is in the better position to bring the evaluation reform both in the form of summative assessment and formative assessment. So if we talk about criteria 2, the total weightage is 350 out of the 1000 of total SSR given. Here the quantitative matrix are 225 and qualitative matrix 125. So the ratio comes out to here, as I already told, it's 70-30. It's approximately, here it is 64.28 is to 35.71. Means if you answer all the quantitative matrix, then you will get 225 weightage. Criteria 2, to start with criteria 2, teaching, learning and evaluation, 2.1 is about student enrollment and profile. It is expected that the process of admitting students to the program is through a transparent, well-administered mechanism, complying with all the norms of the concerned regulatory or governing agencies, including the state and central governments. Apart from the compliance to the various regulations, the institute should put forth its efforts to ensuring equity and wide access, having representation of student community from different geographical areas, different socio-economic, different cultural and different educational background. This will be reflected in student profile. So in 2.1.1, that is a quantitative matrix, average enrollment percentage they are asking for the average last 5 years. Here they are asking about the number of students admitted during the year and number of sanctioned seats during the year. And for 2.1.2, that is again a quantitative matrix. Here the average percentage of seat filled against the seats reserved for various categories like SC, ST, OBC, Divyang, etc. As per applicable reservation policy of the government or the central government or the university during last 5 years, they are asking about. Here it should be filled exclusive of supernumerary seats. You might be aware about that. Means supernumerary seats are seats which are allotted in special circumstances for that year only. Means it exceeds the original number of quota of the seats. So do not count this as this extra seat is added by the regulatory authority for that particular year only. In this data template, you have to fill the 2.1.1. This is, I have taken a snapshot from the revised accreditation framework. This is for university. It carries 5 weightage. Here they are asking about the demand ratio or average of last 5 years. That is number of seats available year-wise during the last 5 years. Number of seat or the total number of eligible application received and total number of seats filled against the sanctioned seats. Here underline is that the total number of eligible applications received. You need not to count each and every application. Here this data template is for autonomous as well as undergraduate and postgraduate colleges. For undergraduate and postgraduate colleges, it carries 20 marks, while for autonomous college, it carries 10 marks. Here they are asking about the average enrollment percentage, means average of last 5 years, number of students admitted year-wise during the last 5 years, and number of sanctioned seats year-wise during last 5 years. So here average percentage you have to taken out. Here I want to add that all the data field should contextualize with the related matrix. There is an upload limit of 5 MB for the documents for the various matrix, and if the size of the document exceeds that limit, institution may upload the same in the on website without password protection. The link of the said uploaded document should be given in the portal provided. And for this criteria 2.1.1, you need to upload the document. Care should be taken that the documentary proof should be certified by the competent authorities, and you need year-wise list of students approved by the affiliating university. You should consider only the students on roll during the odd semester of the program if there is a semester scheme. So here they are asking about the average percentage of seat filled against the seat reserved for various categories. Means you need to upload the seat earmark for the reserve category. You have to upload the document showing the state government, central government reservation policy for admission in higher education, and also provide the number of seats reserved for each of the program, and the program wise total authenticated by the registrar of the affiliating university or admission authority, whosoever is there. So take care that the admission to only the first year classes of all the program to be considered. This criteria is criteria 2.2. This is catering to the student diversity. Student diversity, the higher education are expected to satisfy the need of students from diverse backgrounds, including the backward community as well as from different locales. They would make special efforts to bring in students from special categories. Reach out to their special learning needs by initial assessment of their learning levels, in addition to understand possible variations over year, and how and what is done to deal with such students. While in unigender institution, explicit efforts are to be made to sensitize the student about the other gender and the like. So here, this is a qualitative matrix where they are asking to describe in maximum 500 words about the institution, assesses the learning level of the students, and organize special programs for advanced learners and the slow learners. Here, I will recommend that before commencement of the classes, the learning level should be discussed. There should be induction program, and where you should assess what is the learning level of the student. You may call it as a diagnostic assessment, as the doctor diagnosed the disease. So it is a form of pre-assessment where a teacher can evaluate the student's strength, weakness, knowledge and skill. It should be done department wise. Here during the interaction, teacher should take basic idea of learner's strength, weakness, socio-economic status, percentage of last qualifying exam, interest, aptitude, etc. And after that, next step is to identify the slow and the fast learner. For that, each and every subject teacher should conduct subject tests within the first 20 days of start of the academic session of the first year classes only. Based on their performance, they are classified as slow and the advanced learners. And after knowing their learning capabilities, the example of various measures can be taken. And here you should remember that never try to segregate the slow learner and advanced learner in different sections, as we have found in some of the SSRs. Most of the slow learner are subject specific. And the other thing is that we are not conducting any psychological test here to differentiate them proficiently. So other is the student full-time teacher ratio. They the data for latest completed academic year they are requiring, total number of students enrolled in the institution, total number of full-time teacher in the institution. And here I want to add about advanced learner and slow learner one more thing, like slow learner, what you can do for slow learner, as they are asking that what are the programs you need to explain in 500 words. So for slow learners, the fundamental of subject are to be taught at department level through the extra classes, and their queries should be cleared and their weaker areas should be thoroughly worked upon. And they should be regularly given the test exercises supplemented with professional counseling and motivation. They should be encouraged to join some activities, and you may also design some bridge courses for them. Bridge courses are actually both for slow learner and advanced learner. The main aim of bridge courses, the learning gap in the existing classes, to fill the gap between the existing class and the previous class. Suppose if a student of BCom want to enroll for the MA English, somehow if he or she is eligible, it means some bridge course should be there. So the basic gap can be filled between the two classes and how he will go there. Same wise, such type of bridge courses can be designed for slow learners also. Extra classes can be designed for slow learner also. And for advanced learner, special coaching should be made available in the department to give them more exposure and extra guidance. They should be encouraged and facilitated to read beyond the prescribed syllabus, and should be given access to the reference books, journals, e-resources, online study material to supplement their learning. They are given, should be given the latest topic of seminar presentation, special coaching to entry into the services like UGC, NET, UPSC, etc. And we may give some hand-on project material to some advanced learners, and may also encourage them to write review reports and blogs nowadays, may ask them for PPT presentation, and may also engage them in flipped classroom. And for as they are asking about describing 500 words, I think I have given some hints how to do all that. And here I want to add that you should frame the MCQs test covering more or less every of the generic requirement of the syllabus, and decision should be taken by the department council to assign the margins for defining slow learner and the advanced learner. And the discussion with students to assess their socio-economic background, learning environment they have come across, and their expectation should be counted before segregating them or making them whether they are slow learner or the fast learner or the advanced learner. And you should have formal and informal strategies to assess the slow learner and refresh the knowledge of advanced learner. And after that, you should track the student progress after each by continuous internal evaluation, and the corrective measures should be taken about that. In 2.2.2, they are asking about student full-time ratio. This is the data template in which you have to fill. For UG and PG colleges, it carry 30 weightage. For autonomous college, it carry 15 weightage. For university, it carries 10. And the question asked here is, the institution assess the learning level of the students and organize special program for advanced learner. And that I already elaborated. And this student full-time teacher ratio, though expected for PG is 1:15, and for UG classes expected ratio for full-time teacher and student is 1:20. Now consider only the full-time teacher number. So for undergraduate and postgraduate colleges, its weightage is 20 out of 350. For autonomous colleges, it is 15, and for university, it is 10. Next key indicator is the teaching learning process. As you know, the diversity of learners in respect of their backgrounds, ability, and other personal attribute will influence the extent of their learning. The teaching learning modalities of the institution are rendered to be relevant for the learner group. The learner-centered education through appropriate methodologies such as participative learning, experiential learning, and collaborative learning modes facilitate the effective learning. Teachers provide a variety of learning experiences, including individual and collaborative learning, interactive and participative approaches. If employed, create a feeling of responsibility in learner and makes learning a process of construction of knowledge. Of late, digital resources for learning have been available, and this makes learning more individualized, creative, and dynamic. Quality of learning provided in the institution depends largely on teacher readiness to draw upon such recently available technology supports, and also the initiative to develop such learning resources to enrich teaching learning. On teachers' familiarity with learning management system during this pandemic, each and everyone has learned how to work on learning management system and other resources available, and how to meaningfully incorporate them in one's scheme of teaching learning. So here, this is a qualitative matrix. They are asking to write in 500 words about the student-centering methods such as experiential learning, participative learning, problem-solving methodology are used for enhancing the learning experiences. All these are the student-centric method because student is the boss. We cannot adopt the old talk and talk or lecture that is monotonous. So in experiential learning, it is a process of learning through experience, and more specifically defined as learning through reflection on doing. Experiential learning is also gained by student through the distinct initiative each one teach one program where the student teach children or primary or secondary level. Most of the time it happened in teacher educator institutes. It may be done by the advanced learner by acting as a peer mentor of their classmates who are the slow learner. It can happen anywhere in university also. So in participative learning, the learning become visible through beyond the classroom activities. For example, through various clubs, committee that provide the exposure to students, thus helping them to navigate through life's challenges, and carving the personality by participating in the cultural fest, youth festivals, youth club, inter-college competitions. All these events change and improve the behavior and attitude of students towards positive side of life and keep them away from any type of negative addiction by channelizing their energy. So this is the participative learning. Next is the problem solving methodology. Problem solving methodology is a student centric pedagogy in which students learn about a subject through the experience of solving an open-ended problem. The PBL process does not focus on problem solving with defined solution, but it allows for the development of other desirable skill and attributes. This include knowledge acquisition, enhanced group collaboration and communication. It may be through the industrial visit, it may be through the internship, it may be by giving them small projects or giving them small practical problems. This section 2.3.2 is a qualitative matrix where they are again asking to write the 500 words about the teacher use ICT enabled tools for effective teaching learning process. To make the teaching effective, e-learning resources, learning management system should be used, what they are expecting. During this COVID-19, it has given opportunity to learn various ICT enabled tools. Net expect that classrooms are installed with the various smart and interactive boards. They should be Wi-Fi based. Faculty should be using the class notes through PDFs and share the PPTs. They should use Google Classroom and Microsoft 360, and there should be various formative and summative assessment ICT tools should be used by them. And but you should take care that these should be documented properly with the screenshots to show the evidence. And do you know that 15 years back there was a direct telecast of Apollo 15 was shown from the lunar surface. That is world witness first ever mood. Now they are talking about the MOOC. The mood was the massive open online demonstration, and it was shown from there, from the lunar surface. And even after 51 years, we are struggling to connect with each other. We are dependent on all these internet connections. Sometimes it works and other it never works. So 2.3.3 is ratio of mentor to student for academic and other related issue. Most of the colleges or education institutes have mentor scheme informally. That is, there is no structured mentor to mentee scheme is there. So, but the NAC here is expecting a formal student mentor scheme. Suppose you have 500 students and 20 faculty members. So all the students should be divided among the 20 faculty members. Take students serial number wise and should be allocated to faculty irrespective of the subject they are teaching. So here every teacher will give about 25 students and they should may or may not be of their class or their subjects. So mentor should organize meeting once in fortnight related to the issue, not only the teaching learning process, but other issues outside the class. They may be related to the hostel, personal day-to-day life, may be related to the conflicts, and they should be addressed regularly. Now, you will be having a structured document of mentor-mentee list. It means there should be a date of notification of the meeting, agenda should be there, minutes of meeting, and most important is the action taken report on the minutes. It means recommendation of the mentor for necessary action to the concerned authority. It may be the head of the department, maybe the principal or dean, depending upon the level of remedial measures taken. So they are asking about the total number of students enrolled as mentee and the total number of teachers as mentor. Here care should be taken that only the full-time teachers should be taken as the mentors. And documents like the circular pertaining to assigning mentors to mentee and student counseling record book to be maintained regularly. And this is the quantitative matrix. About this section 2.3 is teaching learning process. This is the data template that I already explained it carry 20 marks. For UG, PG colleges. For autonomous, it carry 15 marks. For university, it carries 6 marks. And for this 2.3.2, yeah, the teacher are using the ICT-enabled tools for undergraduate, postgraduate colleges. It carries 15 marks. For autonomous, it carries 15 marks. And while for university, it carries 6 marks. Here's the tips to prepare for 2.3.1 for descriptive type of answer, that you should write there that you are adopting a balanced blend of classic and modern method of teaching, preferring ICT based teaching while using talk and talk based tool for further explanation as illustration. You cannot replace the teacher anywhere. It has its own importance, and blended learning should be there. Like it should be perfectly balanced should be there. So visualization based understanding of certain topic, open source videos and PPTs should be included in your teacher plan while delivering the lecture. And you can also use certain NPTEL courses, MOOC courses. MTL is providing free of cost all the courses. When you go to the website, you will see. SWAM is also providing, but SWAM courses are not available all the time, and they are credit based, and it all depend upon whether your university board of study and an academic council has approved or given credit for that. Because as per UGC regulations, 20% of credit can be taken in a program. So MOOC lecture module, MIT freeware lecture module can be used. Demonstration by using dedicated ICT tool through lab-based lecture. You should maintain proper record of that. Collaborative teaching learning, you should give example of that. Participative learning activities, you can write about group discussion, case analysis, role play, project design, presentation, seminar, home assignment, minor project or dissertations, industry internship, field work, or the major project. Short-term skill enhancement courses, you can also explain add-on courses, value add-on courses, UGC sponsored courses, what are you have in your institutions. So, and 2.3.3, I have already explained about the mentor-mentee. 2.3.4 is the preparation of adherence of academic calendar and teaching plan by the institution. For autonomous college, 10 marks are given to that, and you all know how to prepare the academic calendar. You might be practicing in your institute, in which the outline of all the academic activities are given. No details are required to be there. So the curriculum delivery plan, like preparation and discussion in department meeting in tune with the academic calendar of the institution and respective departments, preparation of lesson plan by the teacher, class wise, paper wise teaching plan, execution of teaching plan, regular review meeting in the respective department to assess their teaching plans. Here I want to discuss about the lesson plan. Lesson plan, before the commencement of the session, the teacher should identify the learning objectives. They should plan the specific learning activities according to that, and then plan to assess the student understanding. They should plan to sequence the lesson in an engaging and meaningful manner. Should create a realistic timeline for that, that these are the teaching days given by the university, and within these days I have to complete the syllabus, and what are the activities I have to include in that. And they should plan for lesson closure also. So lesson plan must be designed to reflect the continuity of the purpose from one day to the next. In general, the teacher should begin planning a lesson by identifying the student's learning outcome, exactly what the student is expected to learn, and what the teacher will use an evidence of a successful learning outcome. So in previous 3 days, you might have learned a lot about the learning outcomes, because Dr. Amiya Rath is specialized in that, and he told at length wherever he talked about the program objective, course objective, program specific objective, learning outcomes, and how these can be attained. Next key indicator is teacher profile and the quality. As I told you earlier, that these are not in the hands of the teacher, these are in the hands of the management, that they need to appoint the permanent teacher or the regular teacher on the vacant post to get the maximum marks, as it is a quantitative matrix, and here you need to validate the data through DVB process. So, this key indicator, teacher profile and quality, they are talking about the teacher quality. Teacher quality is a composite term to indicate the quality of teachers in terms of their qualification, teacher characteristics, adequacy of recruitment procedure, faculty availability, professional development, like all the FDPs you attend and how much you know about that, and the recognition of teaching abilities. Here I want to talk about the teacher characteristics. You might have learned about the graduate attributes from the Dr. Shirish Shinde ji. And you know, the first you should make sure that all the leaders, all the directors, they should make sure that all the teachers have graduate attributes. Only then they can teach their students what are they. And the teacher take initiative. Here they expect the teacher take initiative to learn and keep abreast with the latest developments, to innovate, continuously seek improvement in their work, and strive for individual and institutional excellence. Means how much innovative they are. Out of box, can they think out of box? So the data requirement for a year as per data template, they are asking, it is a quantitative matrix for 2.411. They are asking about the average percentage of full-time teachers against the sanctioned post during the year. Here I already told you that institute, those who have autonomy, can fill all the posts and get maximum marks. In 2.4.2, they are asking about the average percentage of full-time teachers with PhD, DM, MCH, DNB, super specialty, DSc, DLED during the year. Consider only the highest degree. They are asking about how many teachers. It's a quantitative parameter in data template. Here, list of all the faculty, highest qualification you have to mention. But nowadays, you might have seen that the honorary doctorate, honorary DSc, you might all the leaders know that you might receive the letters from various agencies that pay such and such amount, and it is sponsored. You become life member and you will get the honorary DSc. And sometimes we have seen that in the SSR, these type of DSc and degrees has been mentioned there. It's my personal advice. Honorary doctors degree, honorary DSc degree are not at all considered. Do not mention them there. 2.4.3 is average teaching experience of full-time teachers in the same institution. This is again a quantitative matrix where the data of the latest completed academic year as per the data template you need to give. This is the data template in which you have to fill about the average percentage of full-time teachers against the sanctioned post. It carry 20 marks. Here the year-wise full-time teacher and sanctioned post for last 5 years you have to give. And the list of faculty members authenticated by head of higher education should be given there, should be uploaded there in the data template. Here, this question of super specialty about for UG, PG colleges, it carry 20 marks, while for autonomous colleges and university, it carry 15 marks. 2.4.3 is average teaching experience of full-time teachers. For UG, PG colleges, it carry 20 marks. For autonomous colleges, it carries 15 marks, while for the university, it carry 10 marks. Here, for the average teaching experience of full-time teachers in the same institute, they are asking about, means average, you need to provide the list of all the faculty, date of appointment, year of experience. They may ask about the attendance also, their appointment letter, their joining letter, experience certificate, as well as a appointment order also, their approval order from the university, and the year wise for selected faculty they are asking during DVV clarification stage of, they may ask about other documents also as per the need. For university, it carry 10 marks about the average percentage of full-time teachers who receive the award recognition. This matrix is not there for colleges as it has been excluded. Next is evaluation process and reform. This is key indicator 2.5. It looks at the issue related to the assessment of teaching, learning, and evaluative process and reforms to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the system. One of the purpose of evaluation is to provide the development-inducing feedback. The qualitative dimension of evaluation is in its use of enhancing the competence of the students. Innovative evaluation processes to gauge the knowledge and skill acquired at various levels of the program, at first year, second year, third year, whatever course objective they are attaining. These specifications are stated as the program specific objective and course objectives. The quality of assessment process in a higher education institute depend on how well the examination system actually tests the program specific objective and course objective, quality of the questions, extent of transparency in the system they are talking about. They're talking about the extent of developing inducing feedback system, structured feedback is there, regularity in conduct of examination, declaration of result, as well as the regulatory mechanism for prompt action on possible errors. You might agree with me that most of the things are not in hand of affiliated colleges, but whatever is there, we can make reforms in our internal evaluation system. In 2.511 in data template, they are asking about the average number of days from the date of last semester end or year end examination till the declaration of result during the last 5 years. Here for autonomous college and university, it carries 15 marks. For colleges, it carries 20 marks. Here you need to upload the list of programs and date of last semester and date of declaration of result in the data template. In 2.5.2, you need to provide the average percentage of student complaints or grievances about the evaluation against the total number appeared in the examinations during the last 5 years. Means for the last 5 years, how many have appeared and how many have given this complaint that we are not satisfied with the system or not satisfied with the evaluation system. For this affiliated constituent and affiliated college, it carries 15 marks. For autonomous college and university, it carries 10 marks. So here, number of complaint and total number of student appeared year-wise, you have to upload. If there are too many complaints or nil complaint, it means system is not working properly. For UG PG colleges, this evaluation process and reform that carries 30 marks, it carry question 2.511 as the qualitative matrix to describe in 500 words about the mechanism of internal assessment is transparent and robust in terms of frequency and mode. It carries the 15 marks. 2.5.1 means you need to give evidence for each and every internal assessment conducted, notice displayed, whether you have shown these marks to the student or not, whether you have given the answer sheets to the students or not, and online examination and other method of continuous internal assessment if applicable. So all these things they are asking about. And again, as I already told about the grievance related system, this question carries in this way. So here the tips, like for internal assessment, they expect to be a transparent system and every student has an idea about the standard internal evaluation process, theory and practical subject. This idea you can give during your induction program or during the orientation. An institute follow the regulation of the university while doing all this internal assessment, and display of marks on the department notice board is there, and slow learners are permitted to improvise, and head of the department are fully empowered to suggest the reassessment. All such modifications are displayed in the department notice board for student. And academic calendar that you prepare before the commencement of the session, that is given in your handbook of information, should include the detailed structure about the schedule of the examination. The orientation program to the students to make them acquainted with the rules and regulation of the affiliating university, examinations, evaluation process, all the information should be given to them. They should be aware of each and everything. College handbook are handed over to the student after the orientation program. So in hand they have some document, and it in e-form, it should be uploaded on the college website, or link should be given over there. And detail of CIE, continuous internal evaluation, should be given and uploaded. The answer script are given back to the student after evaluation of their information, providing the sufficient transparency and accountability. And examination related grievances should be handled by the student, mentor also, and here the mentor should work and should maintain record about that, and it should be make time bound and transparent. The marks awarded for continuous internal evaluation are displayed on examination section notice board. The exam section displayed the evaluation report by cross-checking the statement of marks as submitted by the respective faculty members. Student approach its mentor for clarification related to the internal marks or any other type of grievances. Student issue related to the above has to be addressed by mentor in a time-bound manner, and normally it is kept for 6 days. Like within the 6 days, grievances should be addressed. And the student mentor cross-check the same issue with the department and exam section. Issue will be identified and sorted. Recommendation are forwarded to the department, as I already told about what the mentor should do during mentor-mentee process. In 2.5.3, they are asking about the IT integration and reform in examination procedure and process, including continuous internal assessment, have brought in considerable improvement in the examination management system of the institution. Here it is a qualitative matrix. You need to explain in 500 words and the maximum 1000 words. Continuous internal assessment they are asking about, means they are asking about need detailed examination procedure, reforms and initiative taken in the exam, and means whether there is automation or the ERP system is there, and also whether the institute can state about online examination and other matter of continuous internal assessment if applicable, whether all these things are there in operation. So here I have already explained about the examination procedure, like the ratio of semester end and CIE should be there, detail of reform adopted in semester, detail of CIE, IT integration, effect of IT integration examination management system should be there. This is only for the university carry 5 marks. This is a quantitative matrix which is asking about the status of automation of examination division along with approved examination manual. Means 100% automation of entire division and implementation of examination management system is there. In most of the university have that, so they can easily get 5 marks. Next is the key indicators is student performance and learning outcome. Here it is a qualitative matrix 2.6.1. You need to explain in 500 characters and minimum of 500 character and maximum of 500 words. They are asking about teacher and student and aware of stated program and course outcome and program offered by the institutions. For UG, PG and constituent colleges, it carry 15 marks. For autonomous colleges, it carry 20 marks. For university, it carry 10 marks. So here the detail you can exemplars from the glossary, you can see what are the course objectives, and it has already been explained by Dr. Ramya Rath. You have to explain and upload the COs of all the courses. Means you better know that for student performance and learning outcome, the real gist of extent to which teaching learning has been effective in higher education institute is reflected in student performance in the examination. So student performance is seen as the realization of learning outcome, which are specification of what a student should be capable of doing on successful completion of course or the program. So the program objective, like BA is a one program, and after if it is a 3-year course, or MA is a 2-year course post graduation, so program objective and course objective is one of the subject out of this 3-year. For all the programs offered should be displayed on the website and communicated to the teachers and students, and faculty and students should understand that program objective and course objective, should understand it properly, that what they want to achieve and what we need to teach. It should be displayed on notice board also. You may include it in the student handbook, information book also. So like this, and the learning objective should be clearly defined. Most of the university syllabus, what they give to the constituent and affiliated colleges, they already have what are the program objective, what are the course outcomes, and in addition to that, you can design your own. All the learning outcomes are clearly can be clearly defined using the Bloom's taxonomy for all the academic program and course of institution. And attainment level can also be can be calculated by Bloom's taxonomy. Those institutions who have ERP system, there the software is provided where this attainment level, course attainment level, program attainment level can be calculated out. In 2.6.2, they are asking about the attainment of program outcome and course outcome are evaluated by the institute. And it carries 15 marks for constituent and affiliated UG PG colleges. For autonomous college, it carries 10 marks. For university, it again carries 10 marks. So internal assessment is the requirement of continuous assessment and is essential for fulfillment of this course objective and program objective. The internal assessment here include the unit test, field survey, study tour, practical work, seminar, assignment, etc. Okay, so other activity like NSS, career counseling, professional development program, life skills can also be considered for deriving all this course objective and program objective. It can also be obtained through feedback from alumni, parents, and program exit survey whenever students complete a course. Improving learning outcome or outcome-based education. What is outcome-based education? Through this program objective and course objective, through graduate attribute, what they are talking about? You might have seen the new education policy where again they are talking about the outcome-based education, and its only purpose is improving the learning outcome. You know, the pass percentage of aspiring qualified teacher candidate was as low as 3% if we talk about this TET test and all that. And now I came to know it has been improved to 10%. More than 32% of teachers on the job were found to be non-employable. It is according to the study conducted by Mukhopadhyay and others in 2015 I am talking about. So we have enough experience that a qualified postgraduate cannot write an application for a job or leave application. Misadventures and wrong treatment by qualified doctors, collapsing of buildings and bridges designed and executed by qualified architect and engineers are not unknown. So there is a wide gap between teaching and learning. While the focus is on teaching, teaching may or may not lead to learning. There is a wide gap between what is believed to have been learned. The actual evidence of learning is the learning outcome, what they are talking about. They are talking about whether the learning outcome has been achieved or not. Dr. Smith conducted a study in 2009 and he began his paper on outcome-based education with an interesting episode. A young boy tells his father that he has taught their pet dog how to whistle. The father asked him to demonstrate. The boy called the dog and asked it to whistle. The dog affectionately wagged his tail here and there. At the instance of the father, the boy repeated his instruction to the dog. The faithful dog responded with more vigorous wagging of the tail. When the father pointed out that the pet is not able to whistle, the son replied, I told you that I have taught him. I didn't tell you that it has learned. And another to share another during a philosophy lecture, one of the teacher was asking, कहते हैं कि सच्चाई और भ्रम में अंतर बताओ. जब वो ले रहे थे ऑनलाइन क्लासेस, so one of the students replied, sir, you are teaching is the truth, I am learning is a भ्रम, illusion. जरूरी नहीं है कि जो आप सिखा रहे हैं और दूसरा सीख रहा है. And the metaphor has a lot of relevance in today's education system. We teach a heavy curriculum. Students fail to produce evidence of learning or the learning outcome. This has been termed as the waste of mind. So outcome-based learning, here the goal, objective and outcome are three words that dominate. Means learning goal should be there. A journal statement that describes that the intended competency and desired knowledge, skill and abilities, that is called KSA, knowledge, skills and abilities. A participant needs to be successfully performed after an educational session. This is the learning goal. What is the learning objective? It is a specific statement that describes exactly what a participant is intended to be able to do after completing the educational session. हाथ में क्या लेके जाएगा सीखने के बाद, कौन सी skill है उसके पास. Learning outcome, an explicit statement that describes the learning that a participant would have achieved and can demonstrate at the end of educational session. So according to these definitions, both learning goals and learning objectives are intentions of the outcome. Learning outcome, in contrast, is the proof of evidence of learning. Hence, the starting point of outcome-based education is the statement of learning outcomes that are measurable and verifiable as evidence of learning. For example, the evidence of understanding is the ability to explain. The evidence of application is solving problems. Here, all this outcome-based education is based on the Bloom's taxonomy. It is not the old one that tell about first there is a knowledge, then the comprehension, application of the knowledge, analyze, then synthesize, then evaluate. It is not like that. It's based on the new Bloom's taxonomy given in year 2000. It is about first thing is the basic thing is the remembering, then understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. These are the revised terms. So based on the revised Bloom's taxonomy, all this outcome-based education is given. Here they talk about the program outcomes. Program outcomes are assessed immediately on completion of a program. Here the program is suppose BA, BSc or whatever undergraduate course you have. It is assessed with reference to the outcome defined for a particular undergraduate or postgraduate or a research program. The program outcome are assessed after 2 or 3 years depending upon the duration of the program. So graduate attribute we have already learned, these are integrated in that. Course outcome means a program comprises several courses. Each course is usually delivered in a semester. Hence, course outcome is assessed at the end of the semester. Again, outcome-based education stress on chapter outcome and lesson outcome also. What is the chapter outcome? Each course comprises several themes or chapters. Learning outcome assessed on the completion of a chapter are the chapter outcome. Lesson outcome means a chapter is taught through a series of lectures. Lesson outcome refers to learning outcome at the end of a lecture. So program outcome is more holistic. Course outcome is more specific. And in outcome-based education, it is necessary to define outcome of a program and then of each course, preferably of chapter and each lesson. In likewise, like you want to have a brand image of your institution or want to build ethical identity of your institution. So institution outcome is the stamp of the institution or a brand. For example, student of IISc, IITs, NIITs, all the institute of national importance, they have a stamp of that institution, that is institutional outcome. Professional outcome is also there. These are the ones that differentiate among doctors, engineers, teachers, advocates, architects, etc. Institutional and professional outcomes are course and program objectives and beyond. So this is the outcome-based education, what they are talking about in new education policy, and its only purpose is to improving the learning outcome. What they are asking in all these parameter of 2.6. So in 2.6.3, they are asking about average pass percent of student during last 5 years. It carry 30 marks for UG, PG affiliated, constituent and normal affiliated college. Now, this is the most important, student satisfaction survey. Whenever you fill the SSR, then the quantitative metrics are taken for data validation and verification, while along with that, student satisfaction survey start. Here, they are asking about, it carries 60 marks. It is 2.7.1, online student satisfaction survey regarding to teaching learning process only they conduct. You may conduct it for other aspects also to improve the quality of your institution. Here the data requirement as per data template is the name, class, gender, student ID number and file descriptor. For autonomous college, it carry 50 marks. For university, it carry 30 marks. From 2017 onwards, the NAC has endeavored to conduct the student experience survey, the result of which will go into the accreditation process. The survey will capture the student responses through the list of students provided by the higher education institute. The student will remain anonymous throughout the process. The institution is supposed to send a list of total student strength with the detail of their ID number, Aadhaar number, or any other valid ID in absence of Aadhaar. About the degree program they are enrolled in, about the email ID, their mobile number. The NAC will send online link to the survey to the email addresses and mobile number of the students, and the student will have to fill the survey before a stipulated date. Now, they provide a questionnaire to the student, and for that questionnaire, one of the brochure is there on the NAC website, and you should display it on your website, display it on the notice board also, to make the student aware that this type of survey will be conducted and you should participate in that. So the questionnaire, they provide the questionnaire. This questionnaire is based on, like yesterday during a talk, chairman sir was, sorry, the director sir was talking about like how this student satisfaction survey is conducted. So, and for other quantitative parameters also, here I would like to add, like the questionnaire is based on the Likert type of scale. You all know what is the Likert scale. Is it named after inventor, psychologist Francis Likert? It is a psychometric scale used in the questionnaire. Normally, it allows the respondent to specify their level of agreement or disagreement on a symmetrical scale. Means Likert scale means the response are on the scale of 0 to 4, with the most positive response being rated as 4 and the most negative response being rated as the 0. The score emerging out of the survey is part of second criteria on teaching, learning and evaluation only. Here I am telling that it is 2.7 out of the 7 criteria. The questionnaire consists of several phases of teaching learning process. Questions vary from specific teaching skill of a teacher to his overall approach to the educational process. They may ask about the specific skill of teacher, like subject knowledge, communication skill, about the class preparation, use of ICT tool as a part of questionnaire. The overall approach of the teacher and institution with respect to providing the right environment, motivation, interpersonal relationship, feedback, etc., forms the second major component of the questionnaire. 21 questions they ask. 20 of the 21 questions are objective in nature, while one of the question is open-ended to elicit the observation and suggestion for improvement, providing an opportunity to the student so that he can give some suggestions and criticism in its own words. Analysis of the survey is done using a software that is done by third party, not by the NAC, which will aggregate the response and generate the score. The score will range from a minimum of 0 to maximum of 4 on a 5-point scale and would affect the overall score of second criteria on teaching, learning and evaluation. You may get 60 out of 60 weightage in this if your students are satisfied with your teaching. So it all depends on teacher, how much marks they get from their students. And the responses to the open-ended question would also be aggregated to find out the most common suggestion and criticism emerging out of the survey. Here I would like to read out some of the guidelines given with this student satisfaction survey. These guidelines says that the higher education institute have to strictly upload the data of all currently enrolled student as per data template format of Excel sheet given in the portal. Data will be accepted in text format only as per the template given by the NAC. Column names and order should not be altered. No column or cell should be left blank. Repetition of name, email address, mobile number is not allowed. There is 2 separate columns for student ID and enrollment ID. In the absence of separate IDs, the institution can repeat same ID in the 2 columns. Total entry should not be greater than the student marked in the institutional information for quality assessment. Here I would like to add that the basic requirement to undergo the A&A process of NAC is that you should fill your data on AISHE website. That is the reference number used for registration here. And your data should match with that data, and the outer agency or the third party may verify that data with all the data wherever you have provided. You may have provided the data at with your university website, maybe on your website, maybe on AICTE, maybe any other agency, or for ISO certification, some provide. Maybe for NIRF, you are providing some data, and all these data should match. For other quantitative metrics also I am talking about, the data should be uniform. Any deviation will lead to loss of marks or rejection of your SSR. And the triple S, Student Satisfaction Survey, will be administered to institutions simultaneously with data validation and verification process. The triple S questionnaire, 20 objective and 1 subjective, which is available in NAAC website and will also be emailed to the student, and following rule will be applied for processing the response. They are saying that the maximum of 2 survey attempt will be initiated to reach the desired level of response as per requirement mentioned. For college UG/PG, the response should be received from at least 10% of student population or 100, whichever is lesser. For university, 10% of student population or 500, whichever is lesser. If the response rate is lower than the limits mentioned by NAAC, the metric will not be taken up for evaluation. The triple S will be completed within 30 days simultaneously with data validation and verification process. As soon as the survey is initiated by the coordinator of the NAAC, it has to be completed within 10 days. The institute can encourage students to participate in survey and guide them about survey to make triple S possible within the given time period of 10 days. Whenever you get registered, you get a portal over there, and you need to open your portal frequently to see, and there they show that student satisfaction survey has been initiated, and in which they will clearly show that 40% of students have responded, 30% of students have responded. And whenever you open that portal, you can always encourage your student that that you might have received that questionnaire, kindly fill it as soon as possible to complete the process within the time. Triple S questionnaire is in English. NAAC website will have both English and Hindi version available. If needed, higher education can make local language translation available for information of students before they take the survey. And for this process, they have described that the survey analysis score will be used as a key component of accreditation. A predetermined weightage is also assigned to this key indicator in this accreditation for framework, and it is 60 here for UG/PG constituent affiliated colleges. For autonomous, it is 50. For university, it is 30. A stratified random sample of student will be chosen for the survey. Response rate below 10% will not at all be considered. So it is in your hand. If you open the portal, you may encourage your student to complete the survey, and more than 10% should be completed. In sample, student would be spread evenly across the different classes, year of enrollment, and gender as far as possible. The higher education institute are required to submit data of all the students, class-wise, email, mobile number, as I already told. The institution teacher should not by any way try to influence the student with respect to the survey. This will ensure genuine feedback for the institute to improve further. And how the analysis of questionnaire is done. There are 20 objective questions in the questionnaire and are open-ended. And I already told you that there are 20 objective, and some student will respond to a scale of 4 to 0, with the most positive response rated 4 and most negative rated 0. The mean score for each question will be calculated, and the overall mean will be arrived at. This figure will range from 4 to 0 and will give the mean satisfaction level of the students for a particular institute. This figure in the range of 4 to 0 will be score of key indicator student satisfaction survey 2.7.1, which is the part of criteria 2, as have I already discussed. And analysis or open-ended question, they should be, the student are asked to give 3 observations or suggestions to improve the overall teaching learning experience in the institution. Analysis would be carried out by aggregating the most occurring suggestion in the student response. This would provide an idea of most journal expectations, observation, and suggestions from the students. This information can be provided to peer team conducting on-site visit to be used for validation as well as peer team report preparation. So this is all about the student satisfaction survey. Here is about the quantitative and qualitative metrics. The important thing is some of the metrics can be opted out, but in criteria 1, 2, and 7, all the metrics are essential. No metrics can be opted out. This is about the core criteria, like how the calculation of cumulative grade point are calculated based on the marks scored in quantitative metrics, student satisfaction survey, and the qualitative metric. Maximum weightage of metric can be opted out, that I already told. It should not exceed the 30 weightage up to 3%, and metrics with maximum of total 10 weightage per criteria can be opted out, and 1 to 7 are essential. Metrics identified as optional can all be opted out. The list of optional metrics are enclosed in appendix at the end of the manual given for a particular institute you belong to. Qualitative metrics cannot be opted out. So this is all about teaching learning process, and here I want to give a suggestion that you should be honest and committed for preparation of data for NAAC A&A process. Make a comprehensive planning for creating quality culture in the institution, and should prepare at least 6 months before the expiry of the NAAC. And SSR should be prepared beforehand before applying for IIQA, because only 45 days are given after IIQA to complete the process. If it is already in your hand, all the documents are in your hand about the quantitative metrics that are need to be uploaded, then it becomes easy to upload within the time they are giving. And after creating and implementing quality culture, ensure its effective implementation in your institute. Institutionalize the quality culture. Remember, the philosophy or NAAC is the continuous improvement. Quest for excellence and purpose of NAAC is to satisfy the expectation of all the stakeholders. If you can address these two issues like philosophy and purpose, I am sure you will develop excellent culture or habit in your institution, and surely will get good grade. And my suggestion to steering committee and IQAC coordinator is to stay away from all the negative people, because they have problem for every solution. And I congratulate the head of the institution, the dean, Dr. Rashmi Gujarati, and the director, sir, and the Technia Institute, and the chairman for taking this initiative, and also congratulate all the participants to be here, because they are now moving towards quality culture by attending this 7-day faculty development program. Thank you so much. And most of the slides I will upload on my YouTube channel within a week. So you can reach me at neenasetpajni@gmail.com or nsetpajni@gmail.com. Thank you so much for giving me opportunity and for patience learning. Thank you. Over to you, Madam Rashmi.
Thank you, madam.
Very good evening, Dr. Neena ma'am. This was really a very informative and session.
Good evening.
You very well detailed all the parameters in the criteria too. Ma'am, my question is that how much percentage of the total answer script is to be retained maybe for 5 years for the peer visit team to be inspected or to be audited? So what percentage of answer script is to be retained for the last 5 years?
This percentage has not been mentioned anywhere in black and white. So it depends upon the number of students you have in your institute. But if you are filling the data for 5 years, that obviously for 5 years you will retain for them for assessment and accreditation for all the semester wise.
Okay, for all the students, right, ma'am?
Yes, yes. It all depends whether you have this online internal assessment or the offline mode.
Right, ma'am. Right. Because you have quoted that the answer scripts are to be given back to the students. That's why I was asking
They
the question.
for showing them for
Okay,
that
okay, okay,
whether
okay,
the
okay.
evaluation has been made correctly or the note, and then after that you can take it back. Sorry, I couldn't get what you want to say. So after you can take it back. It's not like
Right.
that you hand over to them and they take it to their home.
Right, ma'am. A question that the Sally ma'am was asking was that whether the SSS is mandatory for the AQR purpose also.
No, sir, it is not mandatory for AQR purpose. And for your own quality sustenance, quality improvement, if you are doing all this student survey based on all the 7 criteria, then it will be an added value to the to all the criteria. Otherwise, AQR, they are not asking for all this. This triple S is conducted by NAC along with DV. Whenever you submit the student your total report,
Because ma'am in the AQR,
self-study report.
because ma'am in the AQR it has been categorically mentioned with regard to the SSS that the institute may design their own questions for this purpose. So that is why I
Yes,
was asking.
I told you that you may have all that provision for all the 7 parameters for
Right, ma'am.
quality assurance, and it should be in a structured way.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Your presentation was very excellent and informative. You have highlighted a lot of things, and basically you have highlighted teaching and learning, and this is very nice words given by you that if you are interested in the learning, then anyone can teach you. And thank you very much. You have accepted our invitation and given your very valuable time. Thank you very much, madam.
Thanks for giving me opportunity.
Okay.
Thanks to all to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.